to TU0's Talks. TU0's Talks is a leadership podcast where we talk to military leaders and to athletic coaches to try to figure out how do we take care of people and how do we learn and fail forward.
Failure is an incredible blessing because it's an opportunity to learn.
The problems and the trials that you learn from, 99% of the time, it's not you that pays the price of them.
If anyone wishes to deny their truth or their soundness, the only direction which he can proceed historically is not forward, but backwards toward the time when there was no equality, no rights of the individual, no rule of the people.
And I felt the floodgates happening, and he said to me, my voice is getting all choked up right now.
Make sure that you like and subscribe and get ready to check in with TU0's Talks. Welcome to TU0's Talks. It's another day of interviews. I have a special treat for you today. I have Ben Buzek here and a friend of mine, someone I met on deployment that we've been touch base with. And I am really excited for you to get to know him. And just his story is amazing. So Ben, would you like to say hi?
Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Oh, I love the introduction. That's something we used to say all the time on video conference, wherever people were in the world. I had not heard that in a while, so that's awesome. Appreciate that. Awesome. Well, why don't you take just 2 seconds to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so Ben Buzek. In the military, I was an Army Sergeant Major and retiring after 24 years of service, 22 of those in special operations. Originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, and now I live in Virginia with my lovely family, my wife, Amy, and our 3 amazing kids, our 3 dogs, and our really useless guinea pig. But really excited to be here with you all today and to hopefully bring some value to your listeners.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Well, let's jump right in. Ben, you have been in the most elite and special units in the military, and a couple of those. One of the things that we always talk about is culture, and we've defined that through other people. But what is it about those units, and what is about that culture that is across the board the same?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it's critical as we're talking about teamwork and leadership. For the culture piece of it, really the reason why we get to do what we get to do in the special operations community is because we can move at the speed of trust. And what does that mean? That means we move at the speed of trust because we can only accomplish things when people are in alignment with organizational vision, mission, and goals. That really plays into a culture because, again, it's incredibly important for folks to have shared common experiences, to know the quality of person that is your mate on your left and your right side. And that was a huge piece of culture for me. And why do units become elite? Well, the secret sauce is it's the basics. It sounds really boring and it's not fun at all, but I remember shooting school. Some of the greatest fun and challenging things is shooting and being really, really good at it. But guess what? The first week of shooting, you don't even get to send a bullet down range. It is dry firing. It is cleaning the weapon. It's assembly and disassembly. It is different drills, all to build you up and have you prepared so that week 2 you can go to the range and actually put rounds on paper. So yeah, culture. It's the people, and then learning the basics, or mastering the basics, I should say.
Absolutely. So in these units, you're going to have incredible people, multi-talented, can do a ton of things. There's usually always that alpha dog that is there. When you think of those leaders, whether it is actually a person in command or leading the enlisted force, doesn't have to be them, but those leaders that are the alphas, what are they doing? What common thread do they have?
Yeah, I appreciate this question tremendously because we can learn from others. I have four that I slimmed it down to, I think, in my brain. And I'm happy to go into examples if you want to dig into any of these. And I also want to caveat too that like leadership and learning leadership, I have learned so much from terrible leaders. I've learned that what I don't want to be, or and that goes back to our AAR process, reflecting on things after they happen. But for the good leaders out there, I think if I can narrow it down to four categories: one, they're teachable. They're teachable people. They're humble people. I remember one of my leaders when I first got into the special operations community, and I was like, yes, I want to be just like that guy. I think they're curious. They're constantly learning and growing. And then lastly, they're influential. And what I mean by that is if you take leadership and you divide it in thirds, meaning how you spend your time, not only are you leading the people that are directly under you, your subordinates, but you're leading your peers across the formation with you. And you're also leading your supervisors above you. And that reminds me of a time that we were together, Chris. We were in a place far, far away, and influence leaders, right? The organic unit that was in charge of this task force was only about 160 people that were actually part of that organization. However, the influence they had was of a task force of 3,000 people in over 8 countries. Just imagine that. If we go back to culture, we go back to leadership and focusing on the basics, you have to have people bought into that. And I think influence, again, is one of the strongest characteristics of any leader.
Yeah. And, when I was writing these questions down and thinking through your expertise and the things that we could just pull from you on information, the one thing I thought was about the leader, the actual commander there. And the very few people, I'm a very confident person, and I understand that. And there are very few people I walk into a room and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't compete with that. That's just not obtainable. He was one of those people, just physically bigger, stronger. You see him in the weight room. He is crushing the weights. He's
right.
outrunning everyone. But then you get into the room and you're watching his focus, his concentration, his ability to have conversations, know everything that's going on. He was just bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, better looking than everybody else was in the room, and just had everything like that. And it's fun watching people like that and learning from people like that. The ironic thing was I actually met his sister in college.
Oh, wow.
So, and she was a phenomenal athlete in her own right. And so I had a little idea walking in, but I was not ready for that level. Just expertise and determination and grit and all that kind of stuff wrapped in. But here's my question. How do you get to be the alpha dog in a room full of alpha dogs? What was it that you saw in him that separated, or other people? There were others out there that were like that too.
Of course, we hear all the stories of commanding presence or things like that. But gosh, I mean, Chris, so much of it goes down to just having respect for somebody else. Again, if we talk about being teachable and curious, I'll tell you a quick story about curiosity. General Martin Dempsey, like I'm sure people know that name. I was not present for this story, but this was told to me after the fact. He was on a plane on his way to Vietnam, and this is some time ago, but this is the first time that U.S. military presence had stepped foot in Vietnam since the war. And the person telling me the story was on his staff, and he looked over the general's shoulder, and the general pulled out of his pocket a card and said, "When's the last time I let someone change my mind?" And so if somebody that senior, that, I don't know, like all of the things, right? Again, an alpha male, someone that has presence, that someone we all can look up to and respect. if he can be humble enough and curious enough and teachable enough to land and just listen to what this other group of people have to say, man, there's so much we can pull from that. And so I think a huge part of it is just respect and being humble. Those great leaders are that way, I think.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. You have an incredible experience. You have an incredible career that we can all draw from, and that's true. However, you also have an incredible story and life story. And so we were only in the unit for like maybe 30 days, but being with you and doing the mission set and being around that kind of set was one of those things that was very impactful for me. And you meet certain people and it just sort of connects, and you're like, all right, there's something about that person I'm going to keep tabs. And so I'll let you tell your story, but you did write a book, and once I heard, it was the first thing I did. And so I've got my copy of your book.
Thank you.
And there's some great stories in there. But there was one sentence that resonated so much with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly how I felt. And the quote was, and you were talking about your time, it says, I've never worked so hard to be so average. And I was like, oh, that's like my entire career in SOF. It was, but that's what made it so joyful as well, is because I was always pushed by incredible people. I always felt like I was chasing greatness. And so I highly encourage people to go read The Transformational Journey, to go into your story and to read that. But why don't you take 2 seconds to just tell us your story that you walked through there at wherever is.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. And thanks for the kind words as well. Like you, I never kicked my feet up. I never said I've arrived. And I think that's a great thing for folks to prevent themselves from getting complacent. Complacency is the start of a downhill spiral. So as far as my story is concerned, yeah, I talk about it in that book, The Transformational Journey. I was a pretty troubled teenager. I grew up in a very loving family. I grew up a little too fast. And so I moved out on my own at 15 and a half and bounced around to some state-run institutions before finding some roommates that lived right next to a college university. And so as a high school student, that was a lot of fun. But I found myself getting into a lot of trouble. Almost got expelled from school. And I would have, because my friends, or the people that I was getting in trouble with, they all got expelled. They all got kicked out. But somebody had a different path for me. And that was my vice principal. He was a captain in the Army National Guard. And he had found out that I signed up to go to the Army. I signed up at 17. So I was in the delayed entry program, awaiting to quote unquote graduate high school, which I wasn't on par to do. But he forced me to show up every day. He took accountability of me. I had to go see him every day. And at the time, Chris, I could not stand the man. It was so frustrating. But looking back a few decades ago, that was incredible of him to do that, and what great character he had. And so he really set me up for success to get into the Army. And then when I got to basic training, I realized this was a terrible idea. What did I do to myself? And so I did not like the formations. I did not like the structure. That's not true. I like the structure, but not when people are yelling at you and demeaning you. We've all been through it. But when I got to my advanced individual trainings, that's where we learn our MOS in the Army. The special operations recruiter came, and man, he put on this cool show. Like, we stay in hotels, not in tents, all these cool things, no formations. My hand shot so fast. I was like, send me. And I have a room about 50 people. I was the only volunteer. And so long story short, I didn't get to go then. I had to wait until my year in South Korea was over. But then I went in and never looked back. And it's been just an amazing rewarding, difficult, and fun career.
And not only did you have an exceptional career, but you graduated from high school with not the highest GPA.
No.
But then what did you just end up graduating in?
Yeah. So I was able to take some very loose commander's guidance and figure out a way to get senior NCOs and other leaders, other soon-to-be organizational leaders, into a William & Mary Master's of Business Administration degree. And yeah, it took me 9.5 years to get my bachelor's degree. So to all of our young leaders out there, you can do it. And trust me, it's harder to do it tomorrow than it is today. But between deployments, between family events, it took 9.5 years to get my bachelor's, but I still stuck at it, had it, and then it set me up for success to be able to go get a master's degree. And here's a guy that never thought he was going to even graduate high school. So it's possible. Educate yourselves.
Super excited for you. And the story behind the story is not that you got your MBA from William & Mary, which is great in itself, but you found a way to continue the process, and other people are doing that as well.
Right. So it's like it's creating a legacy, right? It's if we can come at something, and this is in any aspect, if we can come at something like it's not just for me, but who else can win, it's so much more rewarding. I personally think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like setting a legacy and setting a way for others to follow. I mean, that is leadership. That's why we do what we do. And, I go back to this level 4, level 5 leader that I've always heard about. And, a level 4 is, but when I walk away, it crumbles because I'm such this high level leader. But a level 5 leader has the humility that you talked about, and knows it's not about them, but about setting up the legacy and those things that continue that success well after you're gone.
Can I touch on that too, Chris? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Man, when you were asking me about my story, and like what changed for me, I think I had to do some reflecting on that and really think about that. But at the end of the day, I had to allow myself to be led. And I think from high school with that National Guard captain, the best leaders know how to be led first. And so it started off with me being led by others that saw potential in me. They really got me to the point where I could then lead myself, because I finally developed confidence in myself, which put me through the selection process of special operations and all of those things. But then after the accident, and that's in the book too, I finally learned how that I could be led by Jesus Christ. And so there's been this building of being led throughout my life that has led to this moment in time now. And like you mentioned, it's not perfect, it's not easy, but allow yourself to be led. Those make the best leaders, I think.
What point allowed you or told you, I have to be led? I have to allow myself to be led.
So I grew up, I think, and this is going back to the leader you mentioned in our example, the commander of the organization we were both a part of. I think about what kind of upbringing, what kind of household are those people put into? Because like you said, he had a sister. He also has another brother who's a phenomenal leader.
Very much so.
What's the upbringing for those people? And I know I can take mine back to, Boy Scouts, seeing what right looks like from an early age, having values instilled in me, and then learning how to instill that into others. And I believe that it really goes back to humility. Humility used to be a characteristic that was kind of maybe shunned or looked down upon, unfortunately. And now I think people are realizing how important it is to have some humility. You just don't know. And I have a story for this if you'd like to dig into it later. But you just don't know what people are going through. You have no idea what's going on in someone's world. Even that person that cuts you off on the road, man, I used to have some road rage. I can tell you.
Yeah.
but I just don't know what's going on in their world. And so a little bit of grace might be a key ingredient in that as well.
You said this word that I wanted to come back to was confidence. You can display humility when you actually have true confidence, and not the fake confidence or the bravado that you're going to put so everybody, you're trying to trick everyone that you're confident, but true confidence that you know truth, that you're living truth, that you're being truth. When you have that, then you can have the humility to stop and listen because you know that you're right. And I wonder if there were things in your life and people in your life that built that confidence within you that gave you the ability to say, now I can listen to truth and now I can be teachable.
Absolutely. But yes, and I keep going back to, you have to have that mindset or that, like you said it perfectly, listening, right? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. If we could just listen and not just hear people, but if we could just listen, that opens up so many opportunities to then be curious, to ask those questions, to maybe influence folks. Because I forget his name right now. I know it right off the top of my head, but leadership is influence. Do you have influence? And not because you're confident or bravada is I'm the alpha, whatever. It's more so, do people respect me? Can we move at the speed of trust? And can we have an open and honest conversation? Because I'm willing to listen to you and not just tell you. I had one guy on my team. He was extremely difficult to work with because all he did was wait to talk. He never listened. He just waited to talk. And the whole time your mouth is working, he's just formulating his response. And it was very difficult. It took a long time to work through that. And so I think I totally got us off track. But
No, you're right on. And that's part of the humility. When you have that understanding, you don't have to think about how you're going to articulate your right. You'll get to that point. You want to articulate and pull a General Dempsey moment of, am I letting this person influence me? Can I actually learn something from this person? And how can I get a glimpse of that?
That's so cool, isn't it?
Great. And influence, leadership is influence. Is that Simon Sinek?
I'm sure he said it before. It's 7 Habits.
Covey, Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey. Yeah, I believe he defines leadership as influence.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Sinek, Maxwell, Covey.
Yep.
I mean, all
maybe
of those
it's John Maxwell. Yeah. All of them.
Yeah,
good.
Those are great. All right. Well, let's change a little bit on this movement. So we've talked about where you were, those great things that you've done. We've talked about your life story, and what are you doing now? What's going on?
Yes. So first and foremost, retiring. After 24 plus years, it's time to hang up the hat and really to be present for my family. The career was amazing and I love it and I wouldn't change anything, but it did take me away from my family a lot. So now it's time to pour back into them. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Second, got a second book coming out, and that should be hopefully really soon. It's a similar style book where there's several authors that each have a chapter. And at the end of this, I'd love to go ahead and give that to your audience. They can send me an email. I'm happy to send them the chapter, but then when the book goes on sale, they can definitely grab that. And it's called Lessons from Thought Leaders. And in that, I specifically talk more about mindset, and maybe some of your audience will get it because I talk a lot about SEER School as an example of mindset and positive mental attitude, PMA. A lot of folks get it wrong. They think that you need fire or water or shelter to survive. Well, the number one biggest priority is mindset, to have that positive mental attitude. Because it doesn't matter how much food you have if your mind's not in the game. So got that book coming out. And then lastly, I'm doing financial freedom coaching, which is really rewarding at helping folks and pouring into them, keep them accountable and teaching them how to develop passive income and have enough in an abundant mindset to then cover their monthly expenses so that they can choose to work if they want, but they don't have to. It's totally different than how we grew up with probably our parents just spending credit cards or not talking about finances, just getting it out there and having those conversations to help folks be financially free. So that's what I'm doing, Chris.
So are you doing a certain financial program, or what are you doing with?
Yeah, I work with a group called the Apex Coaching Group, and that's been super rewarding. Just like as an NCO, getting to pour into young folks and teach them things and keep them accountable. That's been my pet project with retirement. So.
No, that's great, and I love it that you're still investing in people.
Mm.
You know, we talk about here on TUC0's Talks. It's all about investing in people and failing forward, taking those things that and maybe we didn't do exceptionally well,
Right.
and learning from those moments so that we and others can find value and move forward. So that's awesome. Well, good. Well, and just like that, it's been 30 minutes. I'm telling you, it flies by every time I start laughing because I'm like, how did we get through that so quickly? I do want to pass it back to you. So we've talked about who this podcast targets, and you've given incredible information, but I do want to offer it up. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the audience list?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Chris. There's two quick things that I would love. I mentioned before, you don't know what people are going through. Sometimes we call this an intrusive leader. I don't necessarily like that terminology, but the facts are you need to know your people. I had one guy that was constantly late to every meeting, and we're in a deployed environment. So we're not just talking about what we're going to eat for dinner. We're talking about the mission. We're talking about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and all of the things. And this guy could not be on time to save his life. It was incredibly frustrating. And so after days of this behavior, I just had to confront him. And I was like, listen, man, you're late to all of our briefs. You're showing disrespect to the team. What's going on? Like, I didn't come down hard like a hammer. I just wanted to figure out what's going on. And you could tell that he was disturbed in some manner. Long story short, he was having some family issues, some pretty significant family issues. And had I not asked that in a caring way, he never would have divulged that information because we're tough. We're not going to let this stuff get in our way, especially while we're deployed. But he really needed to just vent and get it out there. And so what I realized is that the start of our meeting, our daily stand-up briefing, if you will, that was the only time that he could actually call back to the States to talk to his family. And he was conflicted. So what did we do? We just moved the meeting 15 minutes later. That way he was able to talk to his family. He was on time to our meetings, and everybody wins on that one. So I wanted to share that one. And then lastly, please listen up, leaders. Leadership is a team event. It's about teamwork. Some of the best relationships I've ever had are with my officer counterpart as an NCO, a junior NCO, a senior NCO. Having that relationship is critical. And at the end of the day, unless you plan on being a dictator, it is a team sport. So work with your counterparts and come up with ideas. And then for anybody that's a parent, you'll probably resonate with this too. It doesn't really matter what happens behind the closed doors between the mother and the father or whatever the parenting mix is. As long as you come out with a common voice to those that you're leading, again, below you, your peers, and then also the people above you, your supervisors or whatever, have a common voice. And that's my last 2 cents there.
No, that's fantastic. Both of those well said and pointed. There are times where I remember giving my NCOs and senior NCOs And I'm like, okay, stop. Like, don't give me that answer. That's not what I want. Like, I need to give you permission to have those conversations and give it to me straight, because we need to hammer this out. And I need you to let me know if I'm being an idiot. And so as a leader, you need to give permission people to do that. And as a second, you are required to give that. And a leadership team is absolutely where it's at. I love that point. So hammer it home.
Well said.
Well, Ben, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on here. I know people are going to get a ton out of it. I hope that they will go grab the book. So your old book, The Transformational Journey, and then your new book, Lessons from Thought Leadership. Is that correct?
Thought leaders, yes.
Thought leaders. And we will make sure to put all that information in the description. Make sure you guys go get your copies of that again. Hey, thanks so much for sticking around and being a part of this. It is a journey, and I can't thank you enough for it. From Ben and I, this is TUC0's Wright. Check it off.